Hi guys, welcome to the St. Joseph's College of Commerce and I present to you Spotlight Season 2 Episode 1. Today's Spotlight is about data privacy, compliance and ethics. I believe data privacy was always on our minds, but it came to light when the whole Facebook and Cambridge Analytica scandal came to light a few months back when Mark Zuckerberg faced a lot of questions in front of the US Congress. Again, data privacy is something that we all care about. It's something that is a grave matter for all of us because little do we know what happens with everything that we put online, everything that we put into social media. Little do we know that all of this information is used to sculpt our minds, to change the decisions that we make, whether it involves politics, whether it involves buying anything off of an e-commerce site, whether it involves making daily decisions. Little do we know that all these companies are actually using our data to manipulate us. Hey guys, my name is Rahul Pai and I'm going to be a moderator today. We have a first speaker today.
So a few years back, oil was considered the most important resource, and you wouldn't believe what it is today. It is information, and more importantly, it is human data. So what makes it so important that people are invading our privacy to take it from us? It's because at the base root, everything that we buy today, the services that we avail, majorly depends on human information. And the era we live in today is called the big data. That is how important human information has become today. It's more of money. You sell data for money. And I think this is why our privacy is invaded, because it's no longer a matter of just privacy or what they want to know about us. It's more of money in the market today.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a point?
Good morning. So, data privacy infringement. Let me explain this all to you in the simplest way using a real world example. Have any of you heard of persuasion architecture? So, persuasion architecture is basically this. Let me give you an example of that. In a supermarket, when you walk in, at the eye level of children, usually ranging between 4 to 8 years old, you'll find a lot of candies and chewing gums at the checkout counter. This is made for the children to pester their parents and get that candy and chewing gum bought. Now in the physical world, there are limits to this, to persuasion architecture. Whereas online, there are no limits. The more they know about you, the more they can target those children, get them to buy their gum and their candy. Basically, this is when data infringement became an issue. When they started collecting your data, mainly to sell things to you, one thing led to another, and now they know everything about you.
Good morning. To give an addition to the points that have already been made, I feel that online data can actually be segregated into two kinds. The first kind is that the type of data that presents general information about yourself, such as your age or your name or your gender as such. I feel that when people share these data online, they don't feel any type of insecurities or such. It's only when we go into more depth of private information of a particular respective individual is when the real concern comes into place, and that's when the true insecurity comes of how my personal information could be shared upon in the internet and could be used against me. So that's how I feel that there are two segregations of data, and it's the really sensitive and private information of ours that really affects how we think about it.
That's a really nice point. Is there anyone else who would like to add upon? Just a second.
Yeah, good morning. Basically, our discussion is about data privacy. So it would help us if we can distinguish between data privacy and data protection, because these two phrases are used interchangeably and they are not the same. So data privacy is basically the fact that you don't want an unauthorized third person to be going through your information that you put online. Whereas data protection is when you're okay with unauthorized third person going through your information, but you don't want them to store that information and use it to another purpose altogether. So in the US, for example, it's called data privacy, and in the European Union it's called data protection. But there's a lot of confusion even among lawmakers whether or not what they're targeting is actually the privacy or protection of the individual in question. So that should be cleared out before we continue with the discussion.
All right, that's a wonderful point about how to distinguish between data privacy and protection. Anyone would like to add on to that or have their own particular opinions? Anyone? Something? Yeah.
Today, technology is so advanced that our data is no more safe. Make no mistake, today we are living in a world of surveillance. Everything we do, even the smallest of things, that is being monitored by hundreds, thousands, even lakhs of people, who knows. And now it is even more essential, safety purposes, other purposes, that our data has to be protected from these thousands and millions of people going around.
All right. That's a really nice point that's made.
I think that one thing that we haven't realized about data privacy and how it's been invaded is how it's kind of our fault, you know. We are the ones who provided them with the information to begin with. Like, none of this would have been happening if we were just more careful and we decided to ask ourselves, wait, what are they going to do with this information? How are they going to make money off of this information? If we stopped and we asked ourselves these questions before we decided to give out our data, then maybe there wouldn't be so much of an issue about how exploited our data is being today. Because no matter where you go, you'll always, even if you go to a restaurant, a new restaurant, or you go shopping or anything, they always ask you, sir, can I have your mobile number? Sir, can I have your email address? This, that, the other. And it might not just be for them, because that's the kind of information that they take and they'll sell. So even for Airtel and stuff like that, they'll take your number, but they can also sell your number to Reliance, and that's why you end up getting calls from Reliance as well. So, it's all interconnected, but the problem is it starts with us. We need to be careful about where we give our information and what we're saying to who.
All right. So to add on to that point, you are saying that we have to be careful with our data. But does that mean that companies, like, for example, a couple of months back, what happened with Facebook, wherein we found out the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, wherein he went in front of the Supreme Court and then he, made testimonies and everything happened. Just like Facebook, if you look at Uber, if you're aware of what Uber had done, wherein they would they would use the customer's location, they would track their location even 5 minutes after the ride is done. And then you look at how what Google has done, wherein they have all of our information, and there were reports coming out that they're selling all of this to third parties. Is there anyone who would like to add on to this or have their particular opinions?
I would actually like to give a really small example. What happened is, one day I messaged my friend, and the next day it was an advertisement about something which I wanted. So at first even I thought it's a coincidence, but later on I knew that what was private was not anymore private. What I had shared was had become an advertisement. So what I would like to say is, we share our personal details on many of the social media sites, Facebook. We start by giving our name, date of birth, and then finally all these social media sites come to know what your likes are, what is your share, what are you commenting on, who you search for. Everything is being scanned and everything is being recorded, to such an extent that most of the data which is collected is not from traditional sources, and 80% of it is from chaotic sources. That is, our privacy is being invaded.
Okay, so I just have a question for the people speaking today. How many of you are on Facebook? May I see a show of hands? Okay, so I presume that all of you like stuff on Facebook, like whenever you log on, you like stuff. Now the point I'm trying to make is that it's not only the information that you explicitly provide is what is used, it's not just that. Facebook and sites like these they have these algorithms which can be used to deduce things like your ethnicity, sexual orientation, suicidal tendencies, parental separation, the most intricate details about your life from the very beginning, based on things as meager as your likes, what you like on Facebook. So just from what you like, they can deduce such information. So Kadesh, I would slightly disagree with you in saying that it's our fault, because we were unaware of what we were giving initially. At this point, when we're all aware, this talk is made to make people aware of what we're giving out. Now, ahead of this, what we do, it can be our fault, but so far, even the most basic information we provide, like a like on Facebook, it's a random click, you can click on anything. They can deduce such detailed information about you. So this is the kind of infringement going on currently.
So, adding to what Musa said, I think we must understand what are the different sets of data that legally Facebook will provide access to other organizations. So, your name, your basic demographics, and also, as Musa said, the likes of the various pages that you do on Facebook. Facebook doesn't necessarily sell this data to another organization, but based on your preferences, it will allow these organizations to place ads on your newsfeed so that you are attracted to them and then end up finally purchasing these products and whatnot. So if I'm more likely to see advertisements of a particular product, I'm more inclined to purchase a product from that organization. So in a way, it is kind of restricting my right to self-determine or my right to decide by myself. So that is where it gets slightly unethical, and that is the point that I would like to make.
I think targeted advertisements are very valid and they are required because it doesn't really, see, whether you purchase it or not, it's all up to your self-control and whether you really want it and different specifications of the product. But targeted advertisements give you more, it does induce a consumerist attitude, but it does give you more variants, more choices, and you can make a wise decision after looking at everything. You do not have to purchase it. It doesn't force you to purchase it. It just gives you an option to purchase. And about data privacy, see, monetization of such kind of things is absolutely fine, but when you sell it, that's when you exploit the data, and that is when it actually becomes wrong. But legal monetization of data is definitely fine.
I'll have to agree with what Jatin said, because I think as people, we are fine as long as our data is being used for something good. It becomes a problem when it is being exploited. So I think I need to bring into picture what Cambridge Analytica did. It actually asked people to volunteer for giving out personal answers. So it was volunteer based. But what happened was there were a lot of loopholes in the legal document. They told that it will be used for third-party reasons, but what they didn't tell was how it will be exploited. When something as moral as elections come into picture, I think that's when we need to be afraid of our data privacy. Until it's being used for something on the good side, like if it is something that we like or recommendations on what we have to buy, I think as people will be fine. But when it is involving something moral like the elections, I think that's when we have to be scared.
Yeah, so adding on to what they said, so there's something called data mining. So what data mining means is that they run your data through algorithms and get what they want. This is what companies normally do. So in the European Union, I think about March 25th, what happened was they passed something called General GDPR. So yeah, General Data Protection Regulation. So what that basically means is that, if a company does, if a second-hand company does actually come and take data from, say if Amazon takes data from Facebook, and they do and they use that in an unethical way, what happens is that they have to pay 4% of their general revenue, which they get globally. So it's basically paying a $7 billion fine. So laws like this didn't exist before. This was something which has been happening for the last 15 years, and I don't think anybody made an issue out of it until and unless something like this actually happened. So what I feel is that as long as they have regulations for data mining, for stuff like this, I think it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, to further add on to that point, I think yesterday there was a law passed in California. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, which is considered the most strict law after the GDPR that's enforced in the EU. So this particular law states that any company that takes in your data, if they are selling it to a third party, they are supposed to, give you the option to opt out or opt in for you to actually, allow them to sell it to a particular third party. So if anyone would like to add on to this or have their own points of view, anyone? Yeah, all right.
Kevin, I just have to correct you on one thing. The 4% fine that you said that GDPR, enforces, $7 billion is not the correct figure. That would be the figure if it was Amazon's revenue in question. That was just one point I wanted to make. With you, Jatin, I'd like to disagree. What you said about humans being free and targeted advertising not hindering our own choice is wrong, I feel. I think that, just to give you a real world example, so we've all watched YouTube videos binge, like multiple, one after the other. You watch one video, based on your suggestions, you will get multiple others just on the same type, and you will keep going into that loop. That is just a very, very small micro example of what actually happens. So the kind of consumerism that you display online, the kind of search results that you get, the kind of clicks that you make, these influence what kind of information you see. The body of information is so vast that the targeted information you see sort of becomes your horizon. It becomes what you think about. So it does to an extent influence about how your thought process is and what you tend to buy. So it's like it actually is one of the aims of the bodies running these things, to get you into the same sphere that you're once going into. This is how they brainwash people in terms of elections. Like if you show even the slightest characteristics of being a white supremacist, they will push you further towards the people like yourself, which are categorized based on these kind of similar characteristics online. So that is one point, and yeah, that's it for now.
I would also like to give a small opposition to Jatin's point. The main fact that we need to understand is various number of social media companies such as Facebook is finally providing a service. And that service is giving us the capability to connect with any of our friends or such, and in order to view different types of views of different number of people. But the fact is, our information being exploited by various number of third parties just to expose us to certain number of advertisements for us to choose, I believe that that's a choice we have to make. If we want to search for something, we'll do that under our own will. I don't believe that any other social media company such as Facebook should be doing this to us and making us access towards all this, and in the end we get exploited through our private information. So I really disagree with that point as such.
So to supplement Hima's point, what Cambridge Analytica did was, when they collected personal information with apparently the permission of people, what they did was they created this sort of personality test where they asked you questions about your personality, and in the end they give you a personality type or something which validates you in some sort of way. And that information was very, very unjustly used henceforth. So that is precisely what they did. They didn't ask for permission, and they did not tell you that this information is going to be used. It was just an online fad, and that's where it was used. Adding on to this whole topic about how Facebook's algorithm works. So basically, the density of data, the higher the density and the higher the volume of data that goes into the algorithms that Facebook uses in order to deduce personal information about a person, the better. As of today, the human beings which once created these algorithms and which once ran them, they don't understand how these work anymore. The data and the algorithms have overtaken us in a sort of sense. Basically, what happens is now all the data collection is automatic, and it is from so many millions of people. You know how big the database of Facebook is, how many users there are. So from all these people, the information that is collected is measured according to certain characteristics, deviations are obtained, and therefore personality types are, understood or inferred. That's why the more information they have on you, the better. Therefore, they are scraping deeper within your personalities and within the information that you provide online to get even more accurate and more detailed, knowledge on your personal attributes. Anyone?
Is there anyone this side who would like to add on to that particular point? Just a second, okay.
I wouldn't entirely disagree with the fact that Facebook has not done enough to give out their policy to their users. But the problem with the terms and conditions and their privacy policy is that it is full of technical jargon, and a layman will not necessarily go through all of the information which is on there before they give their consent. We actually want to get into the platform, so we just click on agree, and we don't think about the repercussions in the future. So what Facebook and other social networking sites can do is they can simplify their privacy policy and make it more user friendly in terms of the fact that the users can actually understand what they're getting into. And as Pai said, if they don't actually want to give their information, they must be able to revoke their consent as and when required. It should not be a very cumbersome process.
That's a really valid point made. To add on to that, there was an article in the Telegraph almost a week back about the same. So when the GDPR regulations came in the EU, Microsoft was one of the companies that came outright and just accepted it. They were completely in support of this. And if you see Windows 10, you can see that it's actually friendly for, say, a person who wants to give out all of his information or not, wants to keep it private. Whereas Facebook and Google, so if you go into their privacy settings, you can see how hard it is for you to actually opt out of, actually giving your data away. So this is something I would like to add on to this. Anyone else would like to add on? Yes.
In one of the interviews with CNBN, Google's CEO Eric Schmidt said, people shouldn't be worried about what they share with us, because if they have nothing to hide, they shouldn't be scared if they have nothing to hide. So I just wanted to say.
So, with what has been discussed so far as to the cumbersome jargon that exists within Facebook's privacy, settings and what they tell you beforehand, what GDPR has brought into effect now is that it asks you very explicitly. So this is your data going to be shared, which is going to be shared, and are you okay with this? It also tells you directly how this data is going to be used, where it's going to be shared, making it very clear for the layman to understand what is going to be done with the information that he provides. This is a fair and just system which should be established universally throughout all these websites and all the services that we are offered, thereby, making it free, like making it clear to all of us as to what's being done with our data. Like that is a solution that could be proposed to the jargon which currently exists.
I feel like even though we have this GDPR system in place and everything, and even with reference to the law in California that was recently passed, right now, this is a very subjective thing, but I feel that right now human beings are just really pissed off because they had no idea that their information was being sold and they're being monetized for something of theirs that they're not getting money out of. So I think that's the only reason that we're getting so pissed off about this whole thing, is because they're making money off of something that we could have been making money off of too. Like if it's just our name, demographics and stuff like that, then we could have used that same information and given it to BSNL or Reliance or here or there or whatever. And with reference to the personality test that you were talking about, that's one very small example. But how many times have we been on Facebook and who are you going to end up marrying? Who do you look like? Or what are you going to be born in the next life and stuff like that? All that information kind of helps too. That categorizes you, because if you click on this answer, there'll be so many people like you who've chosen that answer, and they'll be in this file, and the other person will be in this file and this file, and that's how the segregation happens. But with reference to the consent that we need to give in order to sell our information, how often do you think that you'll actually be saying, okay, yeah, you can use this, okay, no, you won't use this? How open are we going to be? At the end of it, we're going to be like, oh God, just use the information already. How many times am I going to say yes, or how many times am I going to say no? So I feel like when it comes to human beings, we try to look at a situation and try to get the most out of the situation, but when we have the chance to try to do something for that situation, we just say screw it. There's no point in doing it anymore, because I feel like that's what's happened previously and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just a personal opinion.
I completely agree with that point, and also to give in a certain additional point about the value of GDPR. Number one, it will simplify the terms and conditions, as that's what they have stated. And another thing, the main reason which I feel, as everybody was talking about the personality test, it does create some type of consent from you to which you have accepted. But I feel the one point which everybody really, the main reason why GDPR has been implemented is because of the targeted advertising. Because even if we do go go through Facebook's terms and conditions and the policies, nowhere have they stated that they will be selling our information to third parties in order to get the targeted advertising. So in essence, that's basically what has happened. So they have done it secretly, and in the end, various number of third parties, which are usually companies, have gotten access to our information, and GDPR will also put a stop towards that also in order to, prevent this targeted advertising, as that is something that is done without our consent compared to the other things.
Yeah, so Facebook doesn't sell your information to other things. What they do is that they give other companies access. Do you understand? So they don't sell your information. So other companies will not have the information which Facebook has on you. So that's what I would like to say. And on Kardesh's point, I think as responsible citizens, we should make sure that, if we want to take the personality test, it's our choice at the end of the day. There's a lot of things online which is probably not ethical, not legal, but I think it's our choice as to what we do and what we take. If we take the personality test, it's our choice. If we want to download that app, it's our choice. If we want to give out information or take this quiz, it's our choice at the end of the day. So we as responsible citizens need to make sure that we protect our own privacy, because it is possible to protect our own privacy. But if we don't start with, we don't be responsible citizens, it's not going to happen.
I'll have to agree with what he said, because honestly, I think we are at fault too. Because now that we know Facebook is actually invading our privacy, how many of us have actually opted out of it? We haven't. In a way, deep down, we actually find this easy for us, because with our data being shared, it's more good for us, because we get the recommends and then the things that we like. So it's more useful for us. And about protecting our own privacy, like I said, we need to be careful. And even if it is simplified, the terms and conditions, how many of us are going to read it now? We are not going to. At the end of the day, we are going to be lazy because we feel this is good for us.